So, hey to everyone that's joined us today on this Friday evening. Welcome to Boost Talks. This is our second session since we've started this month. Boost Talks is part of UNDP's Boost program, which is a regional acceleration program that uses social innovation to tackle COVID-19 challenges. We're super excited to kickstart this webinar. It's going to be quite interesting. I'd like to invite our partners from Startup Grind, Mo Salah, who will be the moderator, to present our speakers today.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you to our partners at UNDP, East Europe and Central Asia. We're very delightful to have this partnership with them, and personally, I think one of the things to be grateful to COVID for is being able to tune in from anywhere in the world and to host all those virtual events and coming together from everywhere to address, I think, one of the challenges that is concerning literally everyone in the world, a moment that we don't live much in our world, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you everyone for putting this together. I would now go into introducing our speaker, Tahero Nori, and I'm just going to leave the floor for him to start by introducing himself and introducing what they do at his company.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mosala, for the introduction. My name is Tahero Nori, and I'm the founder of TechBuddy, based in Stockholm. And I founded TechBuddy 2017. My background, I didn't catch that. Do you want me to introduce myself, or you're gonna have more of a question, Mosala?
Okay, I'm definitely gonna have more questions for you on your personal background and your company and all the other stuff you guys have done, the amazing stuff you guys have done since COVID, and then your thoughts on the ecosystem and how the future might look like in the tech scape or landscape. But firstly, I know you have a quite inspiring story. Moving, you lived in Sweden, but you're originally from Afghanistan. I'd love to hear a lot about that and changing places. And from my understanding, you spent most of your life in Sweden, but I'd love to hear a lot about what you have been doing recently.
All right, that's I was born in Tehran, Iran. I'm half. My mom is from Afghanistan. My dad is from Iran. I've never been there, so I see myself more as a Persian than that. We escaped Iran when I was 6 years, and were in immigration probably 5 years, and came to Sweden when I was 11, 12 years old. So it's definitely a big part of my life. I'm living with that every day, even though it was 20 plus years ago, but it's definitely it's becoming one part of one's identity, definitely. And fast forward, getting to coming to your new country, and you there's big part of that, like double identity, until you're finding yourself in a society and who you are and what has happened and how do you digest everything. It's a very interesting part of one's life. I don't know if I would do the same with my children, but I will for sure send them to a different part of the world and let them understand that life is not as great we are having it in Sweden. It's definitely gives a different perspective on life. So like I mentioned, even though it was very, very long time ago, it feels that I experienced that every day, and that's obviously as well becoming big part of your private life and your business as well. And mainly we're looking into that. For me, every business decision I would make would reflect as well, how is it to give another human being a second chance? How can we solve the big society problems? How can we create opportunities? And this keeping creating opportunities, it's an achievement and a personal achievement. I learned the other day, early this week, John Donne wrote a very beautiful sentence that no man is a continent by himself. We rather are piece of every big continent, and that's definitely partly as well, if you're looking at how we have built our business, that everyone can create their own story and their own way of creating value for the society, and that's very exciting, certainly.
Thank you. It's such an inspiring story, honestly, and I would love to congratulate you. That's not something that is easy for anyone to relocate, fit in the new society, start a business, and become a successful businessman or a successful person. And just to wrap this point up, I would love to ask you what would be your advices that would you give to people who are displaced or moving from countries to another? I think we have around maybe over than 100 million refugees now in the world. What your advices will be for those guys?
Oh dear, it's a difficult one. I would, it's very difficult to give an advice, to be very honest. I mean, I haven't personally managed to digest everything that has happened to me. Probably one day I would take a time and give myself time to create, probably write a book or make a documentary or make a mini documentary movie out of it. I do go back a lot to the places that I have been to, not as you called it, successful entrepreneur, but more of as an individual having a safe place in world, and see myself in those positions that I was not safe here when I was here for 20 whatever years ago. But I would say, what kind of recommendation would it be? I mean, try to convert those negative energies, what the background, and try to find probably a new way of looking at the life. And if you made it, and a lot of people are not making it. Like, a lot of people get stuck in different places in the world, and they will be sent back to different refugee camps, and it's very, very difficult. And to be very honest, I don't have I don't have a thought through answer to your question. I will definitely take it with me.
Okay, thank you. Such an inspiring way of looking at things, and I'm a big fan of looking at the bright side of every picture. I'm just gonna move to Siavash and ask him to introduce himself and his role at the company, and if he can give us a little bit of background on his personal background.
Well, yes. Hi, everyone, and thank you for having us join. My name is Siavash Habibi. I work as a COO at TechBuddy, and I've had the great pleasure of joining Tahero on his, let's say, TechBuddy journey, and it's been a blast. So I have somewhat of a similar background. I think we two were. We left Iran when I was 5 and came to Sweden to find a better life, and have been trying to find my way since, I guess. I've usually joke and say I've taken the banana peel approach to my career, and it's, just done this and a little bit of that and whatnot. But in general, I can say that I've spent half of my career in management consulting, working along strategy and communications questions, and the other half working in the nonprofit sector, working a lot with impact. And I think I found a good combination of that in TechBuddy. There's, as you asked Tahero that question, I've seen Tahero really, really think about and want to add something that I think is reflective of his background. When he talks internally at TechBuddy, is always about democratizing opportunities. I think he always thinks about how can we create more opportunities for more people. And I do think that is a testament to, you know, the life he's led. And I think it's been a privilege to join this journey and do that alongside Tahero, and try to look at, okay, how can we use technology to create more opportunities in the ways we work, in the ways people catch up in the digital transformation, but also creating jobs, etc. So I think if I was to add an answer on his behalf, it would be democratizing opportunities for that. So that's my role. I work the closest with Tahero in navigating the TechBuddy ship.
Okay, amazing. I'm so inspired by how you guys are looking at things and giving others opportunities. Honestly, it's not. I do wish every businessman in the world or every entrepreneur will think in the same way. I do believe we have a lot of examples of the opposite, and a few examples of great people doing great stuff like you guys. Okay, I think a lot of people here are so much interested on what you guys have done on your company level and what led to your success and what led to your company flourishing and growing. And I'm gonna start with Tahero, where the idea came from, how it emerged to become the company we know today.
Here I can be a little bit give you better answers, Mosala. Thanks, Siavash, for you know, put it in it's such a better way than I did. Definitely democratizing opportunity. I want to highlight that one. And so I would say that the reason why we founded TechBuddy was I have a background from the retail and e-commerce, and there was many reasons why TechBuddy shaped and become the companies that it is today. One of the things was like, we can't continue to consume products the way we do, like manufacturing processes, the way that the products being produced in China, shipped to Europe or Western world and being consumed. You know, the whole more law by the product should be, you know, in the life cycle by maximum 3 to 5 years, and then they break by themselves, and you know, you need to buy a new one. And I spent a lot of time in China, and the reason for that was that I was in procurement for Media Saturn, which is the biggest retailer in Europe, and saw, like, you know, the factory and you know, how people are actually working for us to having this iPhone in our hands. We do like to use these products, but the reality is that it's really not that easy to get this product in the hands of the consumer. It does influence our environment, and it of course does as well affect, you know, the people that are working in these factory lines. And it was a lot of connection to from an earlier topic for me, seeing, and you know, a little bit of a deja vu of is this way it should be? So I started to question that, and that was my time in China, spending a lot of time in the manufacturing and supply chain, and of course spent as well a lot of time in San Francisco. Was very inspired by Uber guys when Uber was a better company, where it was very, very exciting. And all of this combination for me during my day-to-day job, figuring out there's a big you know, piece of puzzle is missing in this whole picture, and that's the end consumer experience. So everything around us that can become digital will be digital. It's just a matter of time. And there's a big gap in the society. I mean, the industry is growing rapid growth, both in innovation and technology by itself. But consumers are not catching up with this space. And we introduced, my job was running innovation, and that meant to introduce new products and assortment to these 1,700 stores around Europe. If it was GoPro or Fitbit, you know, I know these guys when they were sitting in basements in San Francisco. It was very exciting to see this entrepreneur coming up with new cool products. So every time we introduce these cool products, you know, we figure out more and more that consumers are not catching up and don't understand. and of course looking at as well the Uber model, how it's made services in the sense for Uber was more of a right. How could they make it accessible and affordable and available in a way that's no one has seen it before? So these two combination of like, how can you use a technology, create a technology, and redefining the last mile delivery to in-home experience. So that was the foundation of thinking about, you want to really guide and inspire the consumer to choose the right products with what we call the greenifying, and make the right choice of the product, which was a little bit naive, because that was actually from the beginning, because no one really wanted to pay for that. Like, yeah, you want to qualify it and greenify consumer to give the customer a good awareness about what kind of product they want to choose. That was not a successful thing, but we are working a lot on that. I think Siavash will mention about that a little bit more in his part of as well, his perspective on TechBuddy. But we wanted to, looking at big markets, $2 trillion only in Europe, how do you make sure that you're redefining and disrupting different businesses to move the experience to consumer home? So a little bit of a long probably description of that, but I hope that you understand how we try to connect all those dots to create the business, which is a lot in the mindset with the customer obsession and adding and being complementary to industry, which has a big headache when it's come to the customer services and customer experience.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot to fix. That just gives us a perspective how much we have to fix in this world. I do believe on so many levels, and you guys have been selected by UNDP as one of the top companies contributing to the SDG goals and all those stuff that we have to commit to. I would love to move actually to Siavash and ask him more into the actions you guys have taken to be SDG friendly, and how important is that for our future, especially with COVID now happening and being around, and how much this we have to consider it as business owners moving into, I would say, a future that's going to be full of challenges. A lot of people think COVID is going to be our main challenge, but definitely climate change is that challenge we have. Maybe in 10 years that a vaccine won't save us. So Siavash, the floor is yours.
I think that's a very interesting question. The SDGs, if you look at the sub goals of the SDG goals, there are a lot about how do you contribute to creating that wealthier countries can also benefit the developing countries, and how do you create this sort of cooperation? There's a special goal which is number 17 in the SDGs, that's about partnership and cooperation. I think that has been a strong approach at TechBuddy in how we want to tackle this and how we want to look at it. But on those points, I think that what we're seeing is there's a perfect storm of things changing from urbanization, digitalization, globalization. All of these things are contributing in both positive ways, but also very negative ways, how we are moving towards a warming world, but also how we're going to tackle it better together through technology. And that's a very difficult thing, as it's moving in different opposing currents. For us, it's really about, we want to utilize TechBuddy as a platform and our time at TechBuddy to make a difference in the areas that are closest aligned to what we do as a business. I think that if you look at it, 10 years in the future, you're going to have a social license to operate. It means you need to actually contribute in one way or another to a social good or a planetary good for people to even just buy your products. As Tahero said, when he started TechBuddy, it was really about how do you make consumer choices more enlightened, how can they make more sustainable choices? And then it sort of pivoted into, okay, how can we get people to catch up in the digital age? How can we get people to have jobs in doing that are well paying? As Tahero mentioned, when Uber was a good company, I think what he's referring to is that there are a lot of companies that are misusing the gig economy to think about profits first. And I think that what we're doing differently is not thinking about profits first. It's about how can we create a win-win-win. It's a win for us because we're obviously making good margins, and it's a good business model for driving this. But it's also really good for our technicians. And if it's good for our technicians, it's really good for our customers. The worst thing that can happen when you're working in the gig economy is that the buddy, as we call our technicians, shows up at the customer's home and says, the guys at the HQ, they want us to recommend this, but that's not what you should do. You should actually be doing this instead. If you do that, then your business is probably going to go down the drain. What that says is that the trust, the authenticity, which is also parts of a social integrity that they have, is really important. And if you're working on sustainability agendas, you want to improve their lives, you want to improve worker lives, you want to improve the future of employment, you want to improve how customers can keep their products longer, which is one of the SDG goals about decreasing consumerism and also e-waste, which is a massive problem. Then all of these things start to go together, and it creates synergies for the business that I think that a couple of years further ahead is going to be absolutely fully important, especially after COVID, for people to keep buying your services and prefer your services to other competitors out there.
Thank you. I'm just going to go to Tahero, and I'm just going to try to have a couple of questions around what you guys done when COVID hit. Tahero, what was your first decision when the pandemic broke out?
Well, it's a lot of things, right? When you're running a company and in the same time that the global market is the stock market drops with over 40-50%, the first thing you figure out as a lean scale up or a startup company, so how are you going to finance the business? How are you going to make sure that your cash flow is and liquidity plan is going to sustain when all of this is going to affect the business? And you have to just make sure that you have a right business model that it can sustain itself. Is that the case? Yes or no? In our case, our business was mainly affected because it's all on site. We visiting customer home. So we were not in a good situation at all. We lost our biggest market, Spain, basically over a day. And you need to consider a lot of things that it's mainly will affect on how can you just maintain your business in a sense that you just avoiding the bankruptcy. And in those cases that you figure out that, wow, having an amazing team and having a great people around you, smarter people that probably will protect your business. I mean, if it would be on my decision, the company would have been, we would have put the business on hold because, it's you want to be the last person that were part of sending people to the elderly's home, and that would be, lots of negative PR around it. And is it really that's what you're gonna do? And is it really this is the right decision? So to be very honest, like we made the decision as a team, what we're going. We were just sitting all on video call and voting, and that's where you need to rely on your team and the people around you. For me, it was mainly, responding to the stakeholders and the shareholders of the TechBuddy. What are the decisions? And being decisive, being probably having as much as fact as possible. I don't even, I'm not even sure if those facts would support us because no one had any answer to any question. But again, relying on the people that are owning the business and running the business in day to day was one of the main contributions why we could, adjust our business from one day to the other day. And Spain, on entire lockdown, it was illegal to send people out to customer home. Like you guys, you might have heard, there has never been a corona, it feels, in Sweden. In Sweden, business was as usual. And probably, I'm not going to put a comment if that was good or bad. That's a longer discussion. But the business continued in Sweden, and Sweden was our, main market. And the business, we could scale down and make sure that we have reducing our cost, the burn rate, and going even more lean to make sure to understand more what's going to happen the coming weeks or months. And that was probably a great decision, because in Sweden, the government didn't, put the country on a lockdown. And we took all actions, hygiene action. We produced lots of masks, hand sanitizer, everything that could, avoid and was based on the science, and prepare the business to just being lean, but not making any dramatic decisions, and as well create a digital product. Obviously, this took 2 months, I would say, to understand like what is going to be our role. And we figure out that people are going to work from home, study from home, and the technology will not work. The need is there, and how can we just equip ourselves to face that demand? And it seems to be that it was a good decision.
Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna go to Siavash, and you ended your discussion or your answer with employment, people working from home, and I think that one of the biggest question today: what is the future of workforce? Now, let's say, because we're still technically not out of COVID, we still have a couple of years at least with COVID around, at least by minimum, I would say, when I say 2 years, that I mean Europe, because the rest of the world, I would say another 5 years, maybe. What is the future of employment, and how I can manage a team remotely? And if my business relies on people on ground, what I should do as a founder?
Wow, those were a couple of questions that were, the kind of million-dollar questions. But I'll try to gaze at that a bit. First, if we start with the question of what is the future of work and what is the future of employment, I think that what we've seen is the gig economy being on the rise everywhere. In mostly in the developing countries. You're looking at the United States, it's probably going to be a majority of people working through a flexible arrangement. And they've asked these people, studies show that it's not about them not being able to find other employment, it's about them actually preferring the freedom. It's about preferring the flexibility. The problem we have is that most societies are built around traditional employment. What that means is that you're not able to get a lot of the benefits, social benefits, state benefits, if you're not fully employed. In Sweden, which is a very progressed country, you can't get an apartment. You can't buy an apartment because you won't get a loan. You can't even get a laptop on a payment plan unless you have full employment. How is that possible? Some of our buddies are making way more than the mean salary in Sweden, right? Some of them are making a really, really good living working as a technician for TechBuddy, but the system is outdated. So I think that what we're trying to do is show a sustainable approach to the gig economy and try to lobby for states, decision makers, banks, insurance companies, everybody to understand that this is the future. You need to get with the program. So I think that we're trying to show that there's a good way of doing this, and everyone should become more flexible. Like what is the labor union model for the gig economy? Where's the micro insurances for the gig economy, right? We want to offer that, but no one has made it yet. So we're like, build it. Let's build it together. So that's the TechBuddy view on the future of employment, if you will. In terms of working remotely, I think that we've seen when it really matters. One of the best things that Tahero did when we faced COVID was immediately, he said, we need to get on daily calls, everybody. Right. So he gathered the management and he said daily calls from now on until we are on top of the situation, which is a fantastic way of driving this. And luckily, that was remote. And even though it was sort of difficult, should we take the train to work or whatnot, that didn't become a question. Everyone dialed in. I think that was the most productive time TechBuddy has had. And then we've also had some periods when it was been a lot less productive than what you would have if you come to the office. So we've been thinking about this question a lot. And I think that it's really about the management and supervisors to have a responsibility of motivating the team and having an inclusive culture of letting them know what's happening and how we contribute towards that together. But having said that, I think that the biggest challenge of working remote, even though some companies are saying we're going to work remotely for the end of times because it brings down our rent and people are comfortable that way, there's something to be said about serendipitous moments. Now, what that means is that people who create these new office spaces, they try to create it in a way that people meet around the coffee machine. They meet around, some hubs. They sit, there's a couch, they sit around the couch. And what then happens is people start to bring up new ideas. Oh, I had an idea, let's talk about this. Or have you thought about this thing we were working on? And what happens then is this serendipitous moment where innovation thrives. And what the research is showing, that innovation is going down now that we're working remotely. I think the biggest challenge is for us to come up with how do we create these serendipitous moments remotely? And we're thinking about that too.
Thank you. I think you covered a lot the whole team thingy, and Tahero in his last answer also covered partially or the operation side. But I honestly would love to go to the core of every business, the business model. And Tahero, I'm sure you had, like every other business out there, to pivot your business model and how you're making money, who's your new partners, who's the new stakeholders. I'd love to hear from you, your experience, and also your advices to all the founders out there on pivoting, because it's not easy. It's like very easy to say it, like we can change our businesses, we can change our business model. But I know for sure from my experience observing over than a couple of hundreds of startups in my region, that was not as easy as sounds, especially before COVID. We kept saying we can pivot anytime, but that technically when we had to, the majority couldn't manage it.
Well, let's put it this way. A lot of businesses change no matter of the pandemic. The business model change. If you look at Google, Instagram, there's a long list, and there's as well studies show that 90% of the businesses have changed their business model since its foundation. I think it's important to remember that, right? And the pandemic just made shock the world in a way that you just need to wake up and say that the way we have done everything is not going to work. And if you're not ready to change, and if you don't have a business that it can be adaptable to its environment, then you don't have the right business. And of course, we can see the difference between startup, scale up, and big enterprises, right? Like startup, everyone are expecting you innovate, you make mistakes, you learn, and you move on. And then is enterprise, yeah, a bit of innovation. And then you have a big companies that say, don't do anything, just maintain it. And of course, we saw many companies having huge challenges with that. So for us, it's I would say we've learned a lot of things during the Corona. I want to focus on TechBuddy and our company. I think Siavash put it in a great way and highlighted it, is that Corona was our most productive time in the company. And of course, TechBuddy have been going through crisis, and this is the third crisis that we are handling, and everything else is becoming, it feels like a warm-up in the future. Because if you manage Corona, then you probably have prepared yourself for bigger things. And it's wrong to say that it was good that Corona happened. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Corona learned us a lot of things and made us to become a better business people. Build, understanding how do you adapt your environments, your company environment to what's happening out there. And it's showcasing as well and proving your business model towards additional new investors. I mean, TechBuddy raised during the Corona. In middle of a crisis, we raised 3 million euro plus. So, and that was important to be able to, as a founder, as a company, even though that the world is experiencing its most stressful situation, that you are patient, calm. I don't say that I was that. I say that my team were. Probably patient is is what I have less than anyone else. I feel that patient is something I need to work on more. So I'm not saying that that was my favor, but being patient toward your stakeholders and shareholders, and being able to visualize the resilience of your business and demonstrate its needs, even though that the world is experiencing what we experience, to visualize the blue ocean of the opportunity when this situation is over, is, I would say, that one of my biggest advice as a founder to other new founders or people that want to choose an entrepreneurship and building their own company. So it's important to not, like, I think Coronas as well learned out that to build a business that has a resilience and has a model that you can scale up and scale down. I think this is something that they're going to be a scene before and after Corona. When it's come to investment, there was a scene before Uber and WeWork, where we can think about valuation and what company can do. And I think there's going to be a scene before and after on what kind of business model that investor will invest in. So as a founder, it will be more crucial and more, important that you're taking those key components of the foundation of your business when it's come to environment, that we are not going to, this is not going to be the last time. We will experience probably more situation like this. I hope that we would not, but I think this is a reality that we need to face. And that will be crucial for you to build a business and raise capital for your business, to really remembering or reminding ourselves of this last 18 months that the world has experienced.
Oh, wow. I can say easily, you mentioned two things I'm a big fan of: adaptability, being adaptable. And I do believe that it's the one thing that kept the human race going on and on forward since the beginning of the human race. So if you have like 3 key learnings or 3 things you would share as an advisor on how to become more adaptable to as a business, or even as an individual or as the founder, because at the end of the day, startups gets a lot from what their founders stands for or believes in. That question is for Tahero, by the way.
That question was for me. Can you just repeat it? Musala,
Okay.
I lost you like 3 seconds.
Okay, I was saying if you can give us like 3 key advices or learnings around being adaptable as a business or as a founder.
That's a very good question. 3 advices. I would say it's really not about being smart. I think it's about being disciplined. That would be my top advice. A lot of people are having ideas, and a lot of people are having, great ideas and great business that could be very successful. But execution and discipline is the number one, and that will have a follow-up on the team members and the people that are going to drive this business. No matter which environment, no matter which situation. So that would be, like, usually everyone is saying number one is the team. I little bit disagree on that, because I think the discipline is the culture of how put a solid foundation of how a team would work and function. And the third one is that, man, go just asset light. Don't build a business that requires a lot of cash, because that's very difficult. And that requires that you will need to run around and fundraise and get in a lot of cash, and then you probably have lots of time that of your life you put in, and then you will at the end of the day have given away 70-80% of your life creation to some other people that will, when it will take off, probably you will not have control over what you have built with your sweat and blood and tears. So that would be my 3 advices.
Thank you. I'm just going to come back to you after Siavash to ask about fundraising, especially during COVID, and we'll come back to you about going asset light and owning your business in a way or another. But Siavash, Tahero mentioned a lot, execution is key, and you're the guy on the operation side. You're the guy making sure your company is executing right and executing fast and definitely less costly. So if you would give us a perspective on what you guys do on the execution level, and you're also advisors to the participants on the program or founders out there.
Well, I think that the learnings we've made throughout our journey is that primarily it's a lot about focus, because at a startup, the things that you need to deal with are endless. There's never a lack of work. The things you need to deal with are endless. The things that need improvement are endless. And if you start to look at all of them, you won't become successful at any of them, right? It's really about opportunity selection. So having a good focus is a good way of driving speed. Because if you're working focused on key things, as soon as you clean them up, you can add more things. And then you start to learn to work in that disciplined way, as Tahero was saying, and you add more and more things to that focus list as they are completed. So I think that having focus and doing the right opportunity selection is really key. And then I think it's important to understand in terms of these things and connecting to the question of adaptability and how do you pivot and whatnot. A business model, a value offer is not just solutions. I think people just get lost in this is our solution and therefore we have to push our solution out there. It's a combination of resources that produce the solutions. And if you take a step back and you look at, okay, what else can our resources produce? What other solutions can our resources come up with? Then I think you have a good way of sort of assessing where else can we contribute with value? Where else can we do what we can do? I think that one of the things that has been super interesting, in the past year of COVID is we've pivoted largely towards education in some of our markets. Some of the education was perhaps, very low down in our backlog, right? But you're like, okay, so people are studying from home. People are having a hard time with this. People can learn remotely and become better at tech. Now, the elderly who are not allowed to receive any visitors and they're not allowed to go out because they're in a risk zone and whatnot, if they don't catch up with technology, they're missing out on the window out to the world. And so they need to learn. And I think that we've done that pivot because we have the resources. We can teach people how to do tech, even though that's not our core model. Our solution was to fix your tech problems or install your new computer, not to teach you how to do it, but we can because we have those resources, right? And I think having that sort of mindset of what are our resources, what are the solutions you can come up with is a very good way to look at it. And finally, I think what I'd like to add is during the time we're thinking about how do we do this? We're in the middle of a pandemic, it struck us, what do we do next? You can't sit there and fiddle your thumbs until you come up with something. One of the first things we did was we went back to the backlog and said, okay, there's so many organizational things that we've been putting on hold because we had to sell our business and deliver on the tasks that were coming in. Now let's improve our organization. Now let's improve some of these things that are impairing our speed. How can we improve our structure? How can we improve the way we work? How can we set better foundation for us? And hopefully when the pandemic is over and the masses of tasks come in, then we're better prepared to do that. and then we've used the time wisely. So the final advice would be, look at your backlog and look at the things that you have in your influence that you can do. So those are the things that I would give as advice.
Okay, thank you so much. Tahero, my question now will go into fundraising. The main job of at least they say that the main job of the founder or the CEO of a startup is actually fundraising, making sure there is enough money there for the company to operate. What is your take on fundraising? What is your preferred channels, especially for early stage, since most of the participants in the program are definitely on early stage? And you mentioned owning your company in a way that give you more options in the future. Love to hear your perspective on all of that.
Would that be related to the situation with COVID-19 or in general?
I would love to hear both. Would love to hear your perspective generally, and what have you changed in that perspective since COVID?
Well, I would go with the one, like in general, what just an advice from my side. Focus in your metrics, your product fit, the market fit, and validate your KPIs, because I would do a lot of things differently if I would start TechBuddy tomorrow from scratch. And I hope that I got an advice once that read a lot more about the fundraising and try to learn from the one that have made the mistake. I think I didn't do that. So I really advise people that are starting their companies that really review and learn from other people's mistake, because those are valuable learnings, and don't underestimate that. I figure out, I'm just trying to reflect on myself when you're asking the question. I might be able to give the audience a better advice, a personal advice. I wouldn't generalize it in that sense, but if I would take myself as an example, we were focusing too much on fundraising. We would have need to, instead of putting that much of the time I put on fundraising, focusing on the product, focusing on your business, validate, look at your graphs, because that's what investors are looking at. There is a great study that's mentioned in several books, but I would take the 0 to 1 as an example, which is written by Peter Thiel, one of the PayPal's co-founders. It's talking a lot about the metrics and what you create as a business, making sure that you're owning your product and you making sure that you have the right market fit and you're having a great, KPIs. It doesn't have to be massive, but as long as you can see that you understand your customer and you understand your product, or vice versa, the money will come. Spending too much time in different mingling and events, I recommend the founder don't put up the time if that will take time for you building the product. Because capital has never been as available as it is now, the last probably 5 to 6 years. There is the investment, and VC and angel investors are super available. I mean, for a lot of companies, if I look at people that build the companies for 20 years ago, God, it must be so difficult because venture capital was not as available as it is now. It's not been as mature as it is now. So if they made it for 20 years ago, and you would not be able to raise capital for your business now, then you don't have the right product. Then you don't have the right product fit. So this is the part that you have to focus as a founder to really validate your business, focusing on your KPI and build a great team. That would be my absolute biggest advice to people that are starting their own company or starting the entrepreneurship journey?
Okay, very interesting perspective. Honestly, most of the founders I interviewed in my life, which is I think I did like 50, we all valued a lot their ability to attract more and more money, and that's going to be my honestly next question to you before moving to Siavash and coming back again to you to finalize to move after to the Q&A. What I should do in a practical way when the money comes in. I got an interest from a VC, how, or an angel or an institutional investor or a family office. What are the steps I need to take from the first meeting till signing the check?
So you mean that between that process, between the time when you...
Process. Yeah, as a founder, how should I address the process?
Make sure that you have a lot of options. A term sheet doesn't mean anything. That's number one. Until the cash is not in your account, is not existed. And make sure that you don't put all your laser focus only on one thing. So you need, as an entrepreneur, and as a founder or a CEO, or whoever that is responsible for fundraising, to make sure that you have multiple different options. And the reason why I'm saying is that just because we have made that mistake by ourselves. And don't really listen to the VCs. I mean, they are fantastic, they are great, they are enabling a lot of, empowering a lot of founders, and they're doing a great job. But they never tell you the truth. They never tell you the reality. They always say, yeah, that's great. So you need to really rely and have the confidence on yourself, and making sure that your options are as waterproof as possible. Because when it's not there, it means that you don't have the money in your account until it's in your account.
Okay, thank you. Going to Siavash, in an 18 month, or let's address the 18 months to come and the past 18 months. What's your thoughts about what happened in the past 18 months, and what your thoughts about the future, the very near future we're having now? Because as we agreed in the beginning of the session, that COVID is not going to disappear on spot. That it's not going to happen anytime soon.
I think that if you look at our company 18 months ago, it was a completely different company. The value offer we had, as I shared, was far more limited. The way we looked at where we could create value was far more limited. I think our understanding of team building, culture, structure, organization, very different. And I think that if anyone experienced our company 18 months ago and experienced it again today, they would say it's not the same company. It's not. It's a new company. And I think that we have to harness that, right? And I hope that in 18 months, we're still not the same company. It's a completely different company in 18 months from now, because it is now we have the time to change. It is now we have the time to grow and move fast. I always say this to our team, because change is difficult in a team, right? Change is difficult in an organization. A wise man said, change in a business is like a grief process. First, you're angry and denial and depressed, and then finally you reach sort of acceptance, and then things become better. And thinking about it that way, we have to sort of encourage the team to embrace change fast and do it over and over again. I am confident that every time we set up structures, 6 months later, we have to delete those structures and set new structures as we increase in number, as we learn, as we pivot, as whatever happens. COVID is an external thing that is going to put a dent on the way we do things and how we think about it. And we have to be a mountain against challenges, because running a startup is not just one challenge. It's challenge until the next 15 years or 18 years, etc. Right? I mean, read the books of Amazon or Spotify or whichever of them. I think when they were a unicorn, They were still like 3 months before collapse, or 3 months before bankruptcy, or 3 months unless they got the next fundraising, etc. So crises are going to come. As Tahero said, COVID is warming us up, but you can't be afraid of change, and you can't be afraid of remaking your identity and shifting. And I think that has been our strength. And as Tahero said, our resilience is that we're okay with that. We're okay with making those shifts and doing it fast while we can do it fast. Because when we're 200 employees, we can't do that anymore, right? When we're 500 employees, forget about it. Then shifting fast, it takes a new meaning than what it does today. So I think, I hope I answered your question with that.
Okay, thank you so much, Tahero. Thank you so much, Siavash. I have one final question before going to the audience for both of you guys, and it's a very simple question. One advice you would give the participants of the program or anyone who is starting his business today? And since the microphone is with already Siavash, go ahead, Siavash.
What advice would I give anyone who is starting a company?
Today. One advice, the key one, the one you would give every time you meet a new someone with an idea and about to start a business.
I'll say this. Do first, learn later. So don't overthink. Do first, try and learn later. So you evaluate after you've tried it. That would be, if I was to start a company today, that would be my main approach. And that's my main advice to give.
Tahero, the floor is yours.
I would say be ready for a lot of sacrifices. It's very glorious, and it's like all these things we're hearing out there with unicorns, and that's all great, fantastic. It's good for the society, but make sure that life is not as glorious as it looks like as an entrepreneur. You need to be able to sacrifice everything if you want to build your business.
Okay, I actually have a session I'm speaking on tomorrow on that topic. What are the things to expect before start? I'm definitely gonna use this one. I usually say it, but like the way you put it, I really liked it. Guys, it was a pleasure and an honor to be with two founders who is crushing things around and building a business that survived, we can say, in a way or another, COVID. And that's an achievement. That's something I'm sure you guys are super proud of. And it's an honor for us, I think, and for UNDP to have you guys. And I'm now gonna move into the audience. I think I already have two questions from the audience. One of it's around going from 0 to 1. And what are some of the books that you have read recently or have read that had a significant impression on you as a founder? I think the question can go for both of you guys. So if whoever would like to go first, the floor is yours.
Siavash, you want to go ahead?
I can start. 0 to 1 is one of them. I think is one of my favorites. The Lean Startup is one of my favorites. Good to Great is one of my one of the great ones. And then finally, I was going to say one, but I think that's going to be on Tahero's list. But I think it's both of us. But I'll save it for him. I'm 100% sure he's going to mention it. So I'll leave that one.
Well, I think it's blitzscaling for sure. Make sure that you read that book before you're starting a business. Don't underestimate that, and really put and understand it into every detail. And I have another favorite book that I want to recommend to everyone. It's called Principles. That's a great book with Ray Dalio. And I will give it as well a third one, which is the Moonshots. That's a book that I have just listened to recently, and it's great as well. It's a little bit against what I say, is be ready to sacrifice a lot of things. But when you start a company and you want to start the entrepreneurial journey, then it means that you are into something. I really, really respect entrepreneurs. I think everyone that is starting a business means that you live in your comfort zone to do something that is impactful. You have a passion behind it. You have some objectives. So I think adding to that don't really give up on your main vision why you start your company. moonshot would give you a lot of perspective to think big, act small. And it's really important that you want to think big and dream big, what do you want to build, but make sure that you're acting in small details and don't be, it's very easy to make things blurry and miss the really small details. And I think combination of the books that Siavash mentioned and myself are the things that I wish I would have written 5 times before I start a company. But again, that was partly I was saying that learn from the mistakes. They are very, very, very valuable. And I would say they are the best fundraising you could do if you pay attention to details of those books.
I'm so much in love with the list, honestly, because it simply covers almost every key component of a startup. Scalability. If you're not a scalable company, you can't be a startup. Investors and VCs put their money there for the scalability, not anything else. And when you said think very big and think in the future and ahead, those guys are betting on the future. They're not so much interested in what you have today. They're so much interested in what you have in 10 years. And think the ones who gave Elon Musk hundreds of millions of dollars while Tesla's losing billions of dollars almost every quarter, they didn't think of what they're losing today. They thought of 2020 when this company will become $1 trillion company. So I'm so much in love with the list. Another attendee question is, you are a solid business already with impressive funds raising and a great experience in operating in many countries. Do you think the pandemic will make a world come together and get more separated? When doing business in different country will be more difficult than today?
I think at least for the next 4 years.
Just because the question I think is very long. The first question is the world coming together or getting separated, and the other part of the question is operating outside your country is going to be easier or more difficult.
I think Siavash will have a much better answer to this question, but I can at least put my 2 cents to that as well. I'm happy that I don't have to wake up every morning and there's a nuclear war almost, that the guy just tweeted it. So I think world is going to go much more closer than ever, because we need that. We're living in a globalized world, and more than ever, the world will come closer to each other. At least I hope so, and I'm very optimistic when it's come to that. And adding as well, doing business, if I understood that easier. I don't think that it's going to be easier to make business the next 9 to 12 months because of, inflation. Yeah. So I would be very careful to start a business if you're really not going to do the next Google, because it's going to be in a different environment. But gathering a lot of facts and, making sure that you're having a right product market fit, and having a right product for the right time, definitely. So you have to be very, very confident in what you're going to launch or introduce to the market.
Siavash?
Well, I think my answer to this is a non-answer, which is it's both. I can sit here and argue a half hour for both position if it's getting more closed down or more open. It's kind of like the saying, if you think you can do it, you're right, and if you don't think you can do it, you're right. And I think you could say that about the closing and the opening of the world too. And this is the interesting thing about the pandemic, right? It has become the demise of so many companies. It has been the downfall of so many companies, and so many companies have never seen their profits soar more. They've never seen better progress, right? And it's really about how are you approaching it? Of course, some business models are better tailored towards this kind of an environment. I'm not going to, negate that. But I think that are you investing yourself out of a crisis, or are you breaking out of a crisis, right? Because if you starve yourself and you break and everything, and you hope that things are going to get better, they're not. But if you're active and you think about, no, there's a lot of opportunity out there still. Which opportunities out there, and how am I going to get them? Right? I think something that Tahero and I often talk about, and especially towards the team, is you have to have the sort of athlete's mindset or the musician's mindset. I don't know many athletes that are out there and is like, I want to become the 27th best in the world. right? You become an athlete to be the top 3, right? That means regardless the obstacle, if it's raining, that
But
season,
other than the
or
top 3,
you'll
you're
make
not
it.
getting anything out of your experience.
Nothing, exactly. And we said that when COVID hit, Tahero and I said that. We said that to the team. We spoke with them and we said, listen, the money out there is probably going to be a lot less than before. But if anyone's going to deserve the money, it's going to be us at TechBuddy. And we have to have that mindset. So again, if you think the world is opening, you're probably right. And if you think it's closing, you're probably right.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Okay, the final question before I end up this session. I'm sorry, guys. I think I took like 10 minutes or 15 minutes more of your time than was originally scheduled, but the discussion actually was really, really fruitful and I truly loved it. One good, one bad habit you have got during this time, or I'm sure that the person who's asking from the audience is asking about COVID time.
Habit?
A good one, a bad one you gained in since COVID. That's a tough one.
So I'm perfect, so I don't have. No, I'm kidding.
Man, come on.
Yeah, I think it was definitely being more disciplined, Musala. I think that's it's really important to, even though you're working remotely and life is a little bit different, it's important to wake up in the morning, take the shower and change your clothes and don't sit in front of a computer with your same pajamas. I think that was really, really important. And a bad habit, work more than ever. My God, I think I've never worked so much in my whole life.
I was always a workaholic, but since COVID, I think just that the situation and the atmosphere just creating a situation of you're just working and sleeping in a way or another, because you're technically mostly not going out because of the lockdown or because of the fear or anything. So just as entrepreneurs, I guess we just get to our laptops and start working, and that's our life in a way or another. Siavash, I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you. I think the bad habit was in the first half of the pandemic, where I was just in front of a laptop and then eating and then sleeping. Like there was nothing else. I was working, I was eating, I was sleeping. And of course I gained a lot of weight. So that was a bad habit. And then the last part of the pandemic, I've brought myself to the office every day. Even, most of the time no one was here. Because we have different offices and a lot of people work from home, and Tahero is kind of between our different offices. Sometimes it was no one here or just 1 or 2 people here, and I always brought myself to the office. I think that's done a lot of difference for me. It's really made a difference.
Cool. Okay. Siavash Habibi, which is, if you live in the Middle East, you have a very, very quite unique name. And I have so many t-shirts with Habibi, Yalla Habibi. This is, Yalla Habibi is the most common phrase in my region. And like everything I want to do in life, I would just tell my team or tell my family or my friends, Yalla Habibi. And it's very quite lovely. Tahero Nori, Siavash Habibi, it was an ultimate pleasure. And I thank you a lot on behalf of both UNDP and Startup Grind for being with us here. And I hope that our audience and the participants of the program enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. And they learned from your great experience.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
You're
Have
welcome.
a great weekend, guys. Bye-bye. Ciao.
Bye, everyone.